it's the Mad Queen. Welcome to the Queen's Lair. I am actually currently live right now on Twitch, and I'm going over this tier list I've made. I did previously make a tier list that went over all the Triple S heroes in the game, so I wanted to go ahead and make an elite hero rating list as well. I will mention that the two lists can't exactly be put together and merge. I've rated elite heroes all based on the fact that they are elite heroes. So I want you to keep that in mind. Just because they're in the S plus or S tier here does not necessarily mean that they are going to be an S plus or whatever tier hero whenever you merge them together with the Triple S heroes. I will say a lot of these are pretty accurate, and I will do my best to let you know the ones that are closer to the top that would actually fit into the tier that they're in with Triple S heroes. But as far as tanks, and you can see I have split them up with tanks, damage dealers, and supports. In the tanks for the B tier, I have Langel. Langel is somebody you get in the beginning of the game. He has a lot of potential, but unfortunately, his survivability isn't very good. And I think that whenever he does his pull and brings people in, that could last a bit longer or do a little something extra. Just in general, overall, he is not a great hero after the literal beginning stages of the game. And I'm sorry, my Skewer and Hattie picture here is kind of in the way, but he is here, I promise. But anyways, after the beginning of the game, you're not going to need Langel. In the A tier, I have Artis and Q White. Artis he's a very average hero. Everybody gets him in the beginning of the game. A lot of people do like him a lot. I think he's a really cool hero aesthetically, and I really did want to like him a lot. I pushed to try to get him. He can be a little helpful, but overall he's really not that helpful in general. And as far as Q White, kind of the same deal. I had a hard time with Q White where I wanted to place him, and for a few reasons I did place him in the A tier overall. I also want to mention, when I do make these tier lists as well, they are based on the average player. So this is not going to be based on somebody that is super in-game. This is going to be for the average person playing Eternal Evolution. And I wanted to mention that very quickly as well before I moved on. In the S tier, I have Boar and Hercules. They are both really, really good tanks. They have different things that they're able to do. Boar is a monster, and Hercules has a tie that he's able to do. It's a link, so he takes incoming damage from another hero or an ally on his team. That way he can help the survivability overall on the team. And in the S plus tier, I have Oak. Oak is insane. If you don't have Oak, which actually Oak was the very last elite hero he was the very last hero, period, for me to get in general. I had all of the Triple S heroes in the game and all of the elites, but I did not have Oak for quite some time, which is really interesting. I do have him now. And that's another reason it's taken me some time to put out this list. I personally have tested and used every single one of these heroes. I didn't want to make a tier list until I could accurately put and place all of these heroes, because, let me see that. My ace is farming on the other screen. I gotta fix that. But I wanted to make sure that before I made this, I 100% knew that I could back up and support reasons why I've placed them where I have placed them. My placings are not the same as other people's. Of course, these tier lists are opinion based. My opinion is not necessarily the same as everyone else's. That's all right. That's why I like to make these and share why. Because a lot of people like to make tier lists based on who's really amazing in the end game, and that's not viable. That's not helpful to most people in general, because they're going to see somebody in the triple S tier, especially a triple S hero, not the triple S tier, the S plus tier, but they'll see a triple S hero in the S plus tier, or however other people like to make theirs. I think it makes no sense to have like 5 S categories, personally, but to each their own. And they will try to reach for that hero and build them out, not realizing that that hero might only have one purpose in the game, and that purpose is not going to help them progress overall. So that's kind of frustrating for me. And honestly, I could have made this video a couple months ago, but like I said, I didn't have Oak. I hadn't had the chance to test him, and I also didn't have a few of these other heroes quite as leveled either, so it wasn't going to be an accurate rating. So that's why I waited so long. Moving on, anyways, damage dealers in the so close category. That's just my nice way of saying that they are kind of poopy. But Karma, Xander, and Ornn are all in the so close tier. You will get Karma in the beginning of the game. I believe he's the first DPS unit you're given. I have mine, Immortal. I used him for a long time before I realized that he was actually not helping me progress. Whenever you get Karma in the beginning, of course, use him and level him until you get a better unit that you can see higher up in this tier list. But then just reset him. Xander, he's a single target hitter. He's really not that great. He has almost no uses, whereas Karma can be used in the late game, but you're going to really see that more so for free-to-play players. And he's still not great, even with really good gear on. Trust me, I've tried it. And as far as Ornn, he's going to be kind of like Karma as well. You're going to see him in the end game for free-to-play players, but really only in the Sincero Marsh, and that's really only where you're going to see Karma as well in the end game. Overall, if you can get other heroes, they're going to be much better, because these guys are not good. But in the B tier, I have Rakana, Murfiro, and Polano. All of these guys, Rakana is able to jump to the back of the line, basically, and start dealing damage to the enemy in the back row. Unfortunately, that damage is not very good, and Rakana's survivability is also not good. So he's lacking on damage and being able to survive, which is why I put him in the B tier. Murfiro and Polano are both AoE dealing heroes. The damage is not good. And then moving up to the A tier, I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can, because I always make my tier list videos way too long. But anyways, in the A tier, there's Randall, Muka, Nagrama, and Sinway. Randall, for me, was between the A and the B tier. He can be good and he can be useful, but it's going to be one of those situations where he's going to have a decent amount of resources, and for beginners, and just in general, he doesn't have a ton of uses. That's something else I like to look at as well. How many places can they be used, and how good are they in those places? If they can only be used in like one place, then of course they're not going to be, an S plus or S tier hero, in my opinion. Muka, his damage is not great. I have him fully immortal. I've tried all kinds of gear sets. I've even put him with all of the other summoners and used the brand new triple S commander with him as well. Just not very good. But because of the new triple S commander, I did put him in the A tier. If it wasn't for that commander, I would have put him in the B tier. As far as Sinway is a solid choice as far as his class goes overall. he does have quite a bit of survivability, and he can do a little bit of damage as well. He's not a bad hero by any means, but he's just not good enough for me, or he doesn't have enough utility per se for me to put him in the S tier. But overall, he is an okay hero. As far as Nagrama, he has some AoE damage. He can be pretty helpful, and in the later game, I would rate him higher, but you have to have some pretty decent gear for him to be in a higher tier than what he is. In the S tier, I have Sorietta, Kane, Botmark 2, and Omar. Sorietta is going to be the first one that kind of falls off here, unfortunately, but Sorietta is an incredible hero. I used him from the beginning of the game, and he took me all the way into the late game and through a lot of the late game stages as well. But it wasn't until very recent I noticed that Sorietta was not helping me progress anymore. So he was able to get me through stage 15 of everything and clear it with a really good clear time. But whenever you start to get really high in the campaign stages, and when you start to get really high as well in the, what's it called? In the tower, then he does kind of start to fall off there. Kane is pretty good as well. I like to think of him almost kind of like a lesser version of Emma in a way. He has bombs that bounce around, or kind of like Ravina. I guess you could look at it like that. He does have AoE bomb damage. The damage is good for the most part. You can use him in a lot of places. As far as Botmark 2, Botmark 2 is not here because of his damage. He's here because of his overall utility. The Botmark 2 is a damage dealing support unit because at the same time he is doing some damage, he's also able to consistently stack defense down on the enemy, which is really nice, and it's going to enable all of the teammates or everybody on the team to deal more damage overall in general, which is nice because if you were going to use somebody that put defense down, like Botmark 2, say it was Artis, you're going to lose a lot of damage. So Botmark 2 doesn't do a ton of damage, but the damage is pretty good, plus that extra point where he's able to put defense down. Omar is an excellent choice. I always want to put him in the S plus tier, but that is just not reasonable. Omar is actually still pretty good for me where I'm at in the game currently, but I don't know. I'm trying to think about how I want to say this. I love Omar. He was definitely one of my favorites as well. I still use him pretty frequently. He has a lot of use because he has AoE abilities that really hit super hard, and you're able to get quite a few copies of him, which is another thing for Sorietta that makes him so good as well. It's really easy to get copies of them. In the S plus tier, I have Taylor and Falvia. Taylor and Falvia, I would say, translate into the S plus tier. Actually, yeah, I would say that they would translate into the S plus tier with triple S heroes. These two heroes are really, really good. I actually, unfortunately, didn't realize how good Falvia was until much later in the game. And if I would have built her out and tried to use her, I probably could have progressed a little bit sooner. She is insane. She should be a triple S hero, but she's not. And of course, Taylor, you can use him literally everywhere in the game. They're both pretty easy to build as well overall, and you can get a lot of copies of Taylor pretty easily. As far as supports, I have Lyran in the B tier, Hypnos in the A tier, Owiza in the S tier, which I'm sure you guys are surprised by, and Serena in the S plus tier. So I would say like a month ago or a month and a half ago, I would not have had Owiza in the S tier. The reason she's here now is because she did get a buff, a very good buff. She is now able to do an AoE stun. So she has a lot of control plus survivability, and she's a really, really good option to have in places like, what do you call? the story, when you're going through the story for control there. Not necessarily in bosses. I won't say she's going to be good in the dungeon content, but if whenever you're climbing and trying to progress, like throughout the story or the tower or whatever, she is going to be a really good option there. As far as Serena, of course, she's amazing. She is a top tier support. I would put her right up there with Mazrani. Both excellent. She's a healer. She has a lot of survivability as well, so she can take place as not only the person that's healing the team, but also as the tank. So she can tank almost all the damage that's incoming while also healing and keeping her team alive. Lyran, unfortunately, is not very good. You can use him in the beginning of the game, but as soon as you get Serena, I would reset your Lyran and try to focus on Serena as much as possible because she's not going to let you down. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave something below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, any of your thoughts or feelings about it. If you have any kind of disagreement with what I say, let me know. Let me know why. Like I said, I would love to know your guys' opinions on them. Also, if you're a new or an experienced player, either looking for advice or willing to give advice, join my growing Discord community. I'll leave the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.